Hi, it's Craig and Richard here for the week 4 feedback video, and it's great to be with you all again. And we're kind of reaching that sort of bittersweet time of getting to the end of the course, Richard, where it's been beautiful to follow everybody and progress through the course. At the same time, the sort of sadness of the 4-week course is sort of drawing to a close as well. Yeah.
Everything good comes to an end, I guess, Craig, but it's not the ending of the journey. We've just planted a whole bunch of seeds, so it's time to keep that watering and sunshine going, I think, on all these things.
That's right. So, and I suppose one of the lessons of mindfulness is everything is transitory, no matter what it is, and but it's certainly not the end of the journey. But we'll try and really have a good launch pad by the end of this course for taking mindfulness further into one's life. A lot of comments about enjoying the extra space, with the whole COVID thing and many people in lockdown of one level or another, but enjoying more space in their life to be more reflective and so on, which has been really helpful. And a lot of learners really valuing the mindfulness as a way of being able to deal with the media and stream of oftentimes really difficult news all the time, and how to remain, present to it, compassionate to it, but without being overwhelmed by it, and and really need to sort of, in a sense, remain grounded, not to be, sort of have thinking and so on dominated by, what's oftentimes some bad news in the media.
Yeah, and certainly, of course, lying in bed later or walking down the street, if that news story is still playing in their head over and over and over and over again, maybe we want to just kind of let that go and focus on what's actually happening in that moment, right?
That's right. Yeah, we don't want to keep carrying those stories with us and keep ruminating on them. And not to cut ourselves or wall ourselves off from the world. So these are certainly interesting times and probably a great opportunity to practice mindfulness. Now, the extended practice this week has been both interesting and challenging at times, Richard.
Yeah, well, obviously meditating for 20 minutes for some was a real challenge, just that extra time, but so was the choiceless awareness practice. And I really loved this week's comments. There were some great comments. Particularly, I think, when we just sit with no real agenda or focus for the attention, different things can happen. We can get totally lost in our projections and thoughts, or a lot of our learners started to notice that thoughts and emotions and things were just kind of coming and going, and there was a real sense of being present, almost like watching a movie play out, which I thought was a great metaphor. There was a movie playing through the heads of some of our learners, and they just weren't getting caught in that in quite the same way.
Yes, that's right. That sort of sense of awareness, that being the audience of the movie rather than totally consumed by it. And you find that in a lot of the world's great wisdom traditions about life being a play, but you can actually learn to watch the play. Life's, anyway, I won't start quoting Shakespeare again because
I felt we were going there for a moment.
I was going there, Richard.
You've got the mindfulness to pull yourself up these days, Craig.
Urgesurfing, Richard. Urgesurfing. I had the urge.
Yeah.
I let it go. Yeah.
And Craig, one of the things I noticed in the comments this week was, when we're practicing mindfulness and we're just in the present, you can't in the end really describe that in words. And so a lot of metaphors started to arise of our learners talking in metaphorical terms, which is entirely appropriate, of course, when people are practicing mindfulness, whether it's, sort of floating and observing things from a distance, or sitting on a rock in the middle of an ocean, or lots of different metaphors arising. And I think it's very interesting. One sort of caveat is when we're practicing meditation, we don't want to get too caught up in the metaphors. We don't want to imagine ourselves doing this or that. And in fact, we want to make sure we can still feel our feet on the ground and our butt sitting on the cushion. That's a pretty important part of meditating, that embodiment and groundedness. Yes. And those metaphors perhaps are ways of describing an experience that's very hard to nail in language, or perhaps it's just, describing an experience. Yeah.
Yes, because, like a metaphor, like the rock. And when people have a sense of the stability of not being moved or attached to the comings and goings, there's a sense of, stability and steadiness, like a rock, and the metaphors of like the sand just shifting, or the waters flowing around it. But yes, we're not sitting there thinking of rocks so much as the metaphor describes an experience, or sometimes like the train metaphor describes a way of working with the passing thoughts, but we're not
Training the puppy. I mean, there's so many useful metaphors, right?
That's right. But it's not a kind of a visualization so much, a mindfulness practice, as those mental images, I suppose, are just describing something that's actually a part of the mindfulness process, but to stay with the process. Yeah,
and of course it's the body that's always in the present, not necessarily the mind. So we always want to maintain some contact with the breath, with the body, with our feet on the floor and our body touching the cushion or the chair. That's really the important part here.
Yeah. The other things, I guess, at this stage of the course, we get into some of the big issues, and mindfulness. There's a very interesting quote about instead of asking if there is a life after death, one can ask oneself if there is a life before death. It's a real call to live mindfully.
Yes.
How can mindfulness help us to cope with those big questions in life and death?
Yeah, well, I mean, first of all, maybe it helps us just to let go, because no one actually knows the answer to this. Many profess to know the answers, but no one really knows what happens after death. But I think you really hit the nail on the head there, that it's about how we live our life. I know in some of the wisdom traditions that I've read things about, preparing ourselves for death is really preparing ourselves for life. How are we living this moment right now? If there's nothing after death, then we really want to make the most out of this life here, and of course, if there's something after death that, depends on how we've lived our life, well, again, that makes a really strong case for being fully present, and the pro-sociality and the compassion and the love and all of these sort of, very sort of positive ethics and behaviors that we cultivate with mindfulness. They become more and more important. So it really is a training for life, isn't it?
Yeah, and the letting go, the realizing that things are transitory. All of these things are big truths. And if we forget those truths, we certainly leave ourselves a lot more open to the grief and the stress and so on. I can remember one time as a junior doctor, and had to walk over this overpass and had these expansive views down over the valleys and right out to the hills. And I can remember, and you see death every day as a junior doctor working in a major hospital. And I can remember it just a very clear moment. I can still remember myself in that moment walking across, and it seemed very apparent to me that the problem was much less about death, but living life under a cloud of the fear of death. Yes. That seemed to be what was much more important, was not living under that cloud, the fear of death so much, and which is really a call to live this moment now for what this moment can provide for us, not to be living with the mind way off with a what if and a maybe. And so I think that hopefully mindfulness teaches us how to live fully, but there's also evidence to show that it helps people, moving into that last phase of life to do it much more smoothly.
Yeah, a lot of mindfulness getting taught in hospices around the world, helping people to go through that transition process a little.
The letting go.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
But even for those of us who are very much alive and very much here and now, it's about, you've touched on, it's about how we live and being present, but also living in alignment with goals and values that give our life meaning. Some very interesting comments in the forums this week. Some of our learners really identifying what makes life worth living, what adds meaning and value to their life, and others realizing, wow, I really actually don't know. And that's a very common experience. So many people don't really know what their life is about. They don't really know what their guiding principles are. And I think, again, the first step in mindfulness is to realize that. So if that's happening for some of our learners, to realize, wow, I don't know what my values are. I don't know what's important. And that's an important thing. We don't want to get caught in a story about that. Perhaps that's an invitation to look a little deeper and ask ourselves, well, what would add value to my life, so that when I look back, at the end of my life on how I've lived, I would be happy with that. And of course, interviewing people in hospices at the end of life, it's never, I wish I'd worked longer hours and had more success at work. It's always about relationships. It's always, I wish I'd traveled more and spent more time with the people I love. So that's, I don't want to be telling any of our learners how they should live their life, but that's certainly what the evidence sort of suggests is what's truly important for people.
Yeah, and I think to actually recognize what's important to us, we have to be awake in the moment, because very often our authentic, direction in life presents, but all sorts of other things come in and cut over the top of it and distract us and so on. And I think a lot of the time that sort of those reflections are to live a life that was more authentic to myself, what I really valued, but ignored it for various reasons. And
Yeah.
I suspect if mindfulness has opened up these questions, it's a slightly uncomfortable time, but we can welcome that because it helps us to more consciously choose those values. I'm not saying what they should or shouldn't be, but for us to actually live a life that's authentically where we feel called in life, the choices we make in life. And great to see that opening up.
Definitely worth reflecting on, isn't it, Craig? It's definitely something that's worth reflecting on.
And I think that perhaps the sense of being overwhelmed can be overthinking that. And I'm not sure that it's a matter of overthinking it. I suspect it's a matter of the awareness, the noticing, because those little signposts will be there for us, but we've got to kind of recognize them within, I suppose, in that moment. And the overthinking things perhaps sometimes gets in the way of us being able to recognize them when they're there.
Yeah. And of course, in the end, all of this speaks to a very deep integration of mindfulness into life. This is going way beyond just doing 5 minutes of meditation every day, or even just trying to taste our meals when we eat. All of that's important too, but this is really, how are we showing up in each moment of our lives? What's important? How do I want to be with this person in front of me? How do I want to live so that, I can look back on my life and be happy about how I lived? And that's obviously very deep integration. So it's really heartening to read some of those comments at this point in a course like this, maintaining a mindful life, because that's exactly what this course is about.
Yeah. And so perhaps many of the learners got more than they bargained for when they signed up for this course. And hopefully it's expanded the idea of what mindfulness is about. So just in closing, just a few things as well, that we're all a work in progress as far as this is concerned. And many learners have already chosen to upgrade to have ongoing access to all the content and to be able to go back over it. And so we'd encourage you to look at that so that you've got something that you can really move forward. And of course, you can obviously do the courses again. Mindfulness for Wellbeing and Peak Performance goes live again on October 5. Or this course will be running live again next year as well, Maintaining a Mindful Life.
There was a great comment. I really loved a comment from one of our learners who took the upgrade option and said that, there's so much information in this course that they decided to upgrade so that they had that ongoing access to all the materials. And for this particular learner, they said, look, it was a bit of a chunk of money for them, but it's kept them from overeating, over-drinking and over-worrying during the pandemic. So in the end, it sounds like it was a pretty good investment.
They've saved a lot of money, I suspect, if that's been the result of it.
In healthcare costs, if nothing else, right?
Yeah. And we'll also provide some guidance on looking at some of the mindful moment videos, which are available as well.
And that's a good way of staying in touch with us between courses until October 5th, just to check out some of them. There's some awesome content there now. Our YouTube channel is really great.
Yeah. And of course, want to just really thank all the team behind the scenes. We're here in front of the cameras, but Jen and Sherelle do such a great job of supporting learners, and they'll be doing that right through to Sunday night, of course, and then all of the people behind the camera. So, Kat and Georgie and Rowan and so on, and all of Monash have been so tremendous in providing us with the opportunity to present this course. So there's a lot of people behind the scenes that I really want to very much thank, and of course to thank all of our learners for just sharing, applying, reflecting, caring about each other. And I always find at the end of this course, it's such, a privilege to be able to be involved in something like this.
Yeah, definitely. And of course, give us some feedback. We'd love to know what you think. Step 4.17, let us know what you thought of the course. You can suggest any improvements. And please rate and review as well. I mean, this is such important stuff that we're covering here, and everyone needs to know about this. So if you think there are people out there who might want to know, friends and family and colleagues know about the course, please talk to them about what you got from the course. It's always the best sort of, advertisement, isn't it? That your own testimonial. But there are also, you can rate and review online. There are lots of different ways to do that, and we've got some information in the course around how to do that. So please let other people know about this, because I think the more people maintaining a mindful life, Craig, probably the better the world's going to be. What do you think?
I reckon hopefully this course has really given everybody 2020 vision.
Must be a great year for optometrists, 2020, right?
I reckon. So goodbye from us all, and hope you have a really mindful rest of 2020.
Take care of each other. It's a tough time, so take care of everybody. Bye.